Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has issued one of his strongest warnings yet about the growing military tension between Caracas and Washington, telling thousands of supporters in the capital that the United States has been escalating what he described as an aggressive campaign for more than 5 months. Speaking before a large crowd gathered in central Caracas, Maduro accused the United States of carrying out a strategy designed to intimidate Venezuela and test the country's defenses. He said this pressure has taken place against a backdrop of U.S. naval operations in the Caribbean and Pacific regions, deadly maritime strikes, and increasingly direct warnings from the White House. Maduro told his supporters that Venezuela would not accept what he called subordination or externally imposed conditions. Addressing the crowd in Spanish, he declared that the country wants peace, but will only accept a peace that respects its independence. In his words, "We want peace, but peace with sovereignty, equality, freedom. We do not want the peace of slaves, nor the peace of colonies. Colony, never. Slaves, never." His remarks were delivered with emphasis on the words sovereignty and freedom, underscoring his message that Venezuela's leadership believes the United States is attempting to exert political pressure aimed at weakening the government in Caracas. The Venezuelan government has repeatedly accused Washington of using drug trafficking operations as a pretext for escalating military activity in the wider region. Since September, according to Venezuelan officials, U.S. forces have carried out strikes against vessels in the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean. These actions have resulted in the deaths of at least 83 people. The U.S. government has said the targets were linked to narcotics trafficking, but officials in Washington have not publicly released evidence to support the claims. For Caracas, the absence of details is seen as further validation of its belief that Washington's real objective is political destabilization and pressure on the Maduro administration. Maduro described the situation as a prolonged campaign designed to test Venezuela's resilience. He claimed that for 22 weeks, the country had been facing coordinated efforts to create tension and psychological strain. He told his supporters, "We have lived 22 weeks of an aggression that can be described as psychological terrorism. These are 22 weeks that have put us to the test." His comments reflect the government's view that the United States is attempting to undermine Venezuelan institutions, calculations, and decision-making through sustained military posturing. In recent days, U.S. President Donald Trump has also made statements that Venezuelan officials interpret as threatening. Over the weekend, the U.S. president issued warnings advising aircraft to avoid Venezuelan airspace. These remarks came as part of broader comments in which he discussed ongoing military operations involving American forces around the world. In one exchange, Trump said, "I've also ended 8 wars in 9 months, and we're working on that final war. It's not easy, but I don't know. I think we're going to get there." 25,000 soldiers, Ukraine, Russia. In the last month, 25,000 soldiers have died. So I think we're getting very close to a deal. We'll find out. I thought that one would have been a lot quicker. I thought that would have been an easier one, but I think we're making progress. Although the president did not refer directly to Venezuela in that particular comment, officials in Caracas view his warnings about airspace and his growing military posture as part of a coordinated pressure strategy. The United States military has been increasingly active around Venezuela's borders, including in the Caribbean Sea, where naval deployments have intensified. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has been shown in recent footage observing operations in the region. Although the Pentagon has framed these activities as part of counter-narcotics missions, Venezuelan authorities believe the actions have a broader political aim. Maduro's government has emphasized that these military maneuvers are taking place while Venezuela continues to experience significant economic difficulties and political divisions. Supporters of the government argue that the United States is attempting to take advantage of these vulnerabilities. To counter that perception, Maduro has placed a strong focus on demonstrating internal unity and resilience. His speech in Caracas was accompanied by a large march of government supporters, including civilians, public employees, and members of Venezuela's militia structures. The march featured large national flags, banners, music, and organized contingents from the governing party and allied organizations. Venezuelan authorities, including National Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez and Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, were present at the demonstration. Both men are prominent figures within the government and have been vocal about what they call external interference. Their presence underscored the message of institutional alignment behind Maduro's position. The event also featured public participation from citizens who expressed concern about the rising tension. Among them was Victor Utrera, the director of an entrepreneurship school in Caracas, who delivered a message directed not only at U.S. policymakers, but at Venezuelans living abroad. Speaking during the demonstration, he said, "From Venezuela, we send this message to all Americans. We are not a territory of war. We are a territory of peace. We call on our Venezuelan brothers and sisters who are also in those lands and on the President of the United States to respect our territories and respect the will of the people, because democracy is for everyone." His comments reflect a broader sentiment within sectors of the population who believe the country is being placed at risk by the growing geopolitical standoff. Utrera continued his appeal by emphasizing that the message was intended for Venezuelans living both inside and outside the country, as well as for international audiences. In his words, "From here in Venezuela, we send this message to all Americans. We here in Venezuela are not a territory of war. We are a territory of peace. To the President of the United States, to respect the territories, to respect the will of the people, because democracy is for everyone." His remarks echoed the government's narrative that Venezuela is being unfairly portrayed as a security threat and that the country's residents want stability rather than escalation. For the United States, current military operations in the region have been described as part of an ongoing effort to disrupt transnational criminal networks. Washington has long accused Venezuelan officials of being involved in illicit trafficking, an allegation that Caracas denies. Recent U.S. naval deployments have been conducted under this framework, with the Pentagon stating that maritime strikes have targeted boats suspected of carrying narcotics shipments. However, the lack of independently verifiable information regarding the incidents that led to the deaths of more than 80 individuals has raised questions from international observers and human rights organizations. Meanwhile, Venezuela maintains that the United States is using drug enforcement as a justification for a campaign designed to reshape the political leadership in Caracas. The Venezuelan government has pointed to statements by U.S. officials, including senior national security aides, whom Caracas accuses of endorsing regime change. The Trump administration has previously expressed support for alternative political factions within Venezuela, and officials have said they want to see free and fair elections in the country. This has contributed to a long-standing diplomatic standoff. In addition to public statements, Venezuela has increased its military readiness. Government officials note that security forces have been conducting drills, reviewing defense strategies, and coordinating with allied institutions to prepare for what they view as potential external threats. Maduro's address emphasized this preparation while insisting that Venezuela wants to avoid confrontation. He argued that the military buildup by the United States, including naval patrols and airspace warnings, is a deliberate attempt to create instability. The Venezuelan president repeated his assertion that the country will defend itself while seeking a peaceful resolution. Beyond the immediate security implications, the situation has broader regional relevance. Countries in Latin America have been monitoring the developments closely. Some governments have expressed concern over military escalation, while others have focused on the need for diplomatic dialogue. Analysts note that tensions between the United States and Venezuela have periodically risen over the past 2 decades, but the recent combination of public warnings, active military deployments, and casualty-linked operations marks a significant moment. Maduro's messaging is aimed not only at a domestic audience, but also at the international community. By highlighting his commitment to sovereignty and repeating phrases such as colony, never, slaves, never, he is positioning Venezuela as a nation resisting foreign interference. This narrative is central to his administration's political identity and is echoed across state media and public events. The Venezuelan government argues that the United States is applying pressure in an attempt to provoke internal divisions, while supporters of the government say such actions instead strengthen public loyalty in Washington. Officials have not responded directly to Maduro's latest accusations, but maintain that U.S. operations in the region are legal and focused on security concerns. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has been shown overseeing maritime operations, though the Pentagon has not released detailed information about the incidents referenced by Venezuelan authorities. Analysts say the strategic importance of the Caribbean and nearby waters makes the region a focal point for competing political narratives and security interpretations. The situation has also prompted reactions among Venezuelan expatriate communities, many of whom follow developments closely due to concern for relatives still living in the country. Maduro's comments about psychological pressure and prolonged testing resonate with individuals who have observed the country's political landscape shift over time. For Venezuelans in Caracas, the visible increase in military activity and demonstrations adds to a sense of uncertainty about how events may unfold. While Maduro continues to frame the United States as aggressively testing Venezuela's resolve, U.S. officials say the country's operations are aimed at addressing specific criminal threats. This fundamental disagreement lies at the center of the rising tension. The combination of public rhetoric, military movements, and diplomatic friction has created an environment in which small incidents have the potential to escalate rapidly. During the march in Caracas, demonstrators carried national flags, posters of Maduro, and signs denouncing what they described as U.S. interference. The sound of percussion groups and chants filled the streets, creating a large and visually prominent show of support for the government. The presence of militia members marching alongside civilians symbolized the blending of political and security institutions, a characteristic feature of demonstrations organized by the ruling leadership. Maduro's emphasis on unity and vigilance reflects the government's effort to project stability. He argues that the country's institutions are prepared to resist external pressure while maintaining internal order. The references to sovereignty and freedom, repeated multiple times in his speech, were intended to reassure supporters that Venezuela will not bow to foreign influence. At the same time, he emphasized that the government seeks de-escalation, stating that peace remains the country's objective as long as it is based on equality and independence. As the situation develops, international observers are watching for signals that may indicate whether tensions will intensify or stabilize. The interplay of military actions, public statements, and political demonstrations continues to shape the narrative on both sides. For Venezuela, the government remains focused on portraying itself as the target of an external campaign that threatens its autonomy. For the United States, officials maintain that their focus is on security operations rather than political confrontation. What remains clear is that the actions of both governments are contributing to an increasingly complex and sensitive environment. For now, the Venezuelan government continues to warn against what it sees as mounting aggression, while the United States proceeds with military deployments it considers necessary for regional security. Maduro's statements and the demonstrations in Caracas highlight how deeply the issue has penetrated public discourse. At the same time, U.S. operations in the Caribbean and Pacific continue, with no indication that either side intends to reduce activity in the immediate future. The situation remains tense, with diplomatic relations strained and military operations ongoing. Venezuela insists that it seeks peace under conditions of sovereignty and equality, while the United States argues that its actions are justified by security imperatives. As both sides maintain their positions, the risk of miscalculation persists. For now, the events in Caracas and the military maneuvers at sea continue to define a moment of heightened uncertainty between the two countries.